that somebody will walk in and want to talk to me. And if that happens, I'll just pause the recording and we'll go from there.
Yeah, that's fine, Coach. Don't worry about it. That's fine.
Okay.
Get ready for England game. Come on, England.
What time does that game start? That game starts in an hour.
Yeah, that's fine. We've got plenty of time, Coach.
Okay.
Cincinnati's more important.
Like that. All right, here we go. FC Cincinnati put a royal beatdown on the self-appointed Kings of MLS on Saturday, beating a heavily depleted Inter Miami squad 6-1. 5 different goal scorers and 4 different providers combined to lead the Orange and Blue to a comprehensive win, moving them to first place in the Supporters' Shield standings. So the questions we'll have to ask is, was this performance down to the formation or the personnel, the opponent? Also, how good was the FC Cincinnati press on the night? We're going to talk about all this and more with the one and only Justin Hoyte. Justin, what a win. How you doing, my friend?
What a win, Coach. I mean, how can we not be happy, excited? What a performance. What a team performance, Coach. I'm great. I mean, playing against Inter Miami, who were currently top, I should say. Watching the team perform in such a dominant way, scoring 6, could have been more. I couldn't be more happier for the team, the organization, the fans. It looked like the stadium was jumping. I'm fantastic, Coach. I mean, what a weekend. How are you doing? How's things, Coach?
I'm doing well. I'm a little bummed I couldn't be in person at that match because
that would have been a great one.
Reunion thing. It's like, that's the thing about being back in Cincinnati, is I get to be, amongst my hometown supporters and fans and go to games, but also so many family obligations. As you can see, I'm still recording here in my office. Bad audio, just the Apple microphone on my little headphones here.
It's working good.
To get a home studio set up at home, and we'll see from there. But Justin, before we get into breaking down the game, I want to ask you about what kind of big wins you've had in your career, because some of these players will have to feel great coming off of not just a 6-1 win, but over the team that was number 1 in the standings when they were number 2. After a big win like this, how long does that good feeling last, and what is it like in the locker room and on the training pitch in the days after?
It takes a long while, I would say. I guess it would take a few days. Well, for me, it took a few days. For the teams I've been on, took a few days. But I would say as soon as we got back to training, it was like, right, that's forgotten. Who's next? What do we need to do to beat the next team? The mood in the camp is amazing. You go into a locker room, everyone's laughing and joking. It's a great atmosphere, great feeling, especially to beat the team that was currently top. Everyone's talking about Inter Miami. A lot of people are talking about Cincinnati, just little bits, but to beat them in the way they did, and for me to play on a team that beat teams quite convincingly, Coach, I'm telling you, the atmosphere in the locker room, the atmosphere in training, probably up until the Wednesday, if you have a day off, it's just flying. Like, everyone's excited, everyone's raring to go. And even up until the Friday and to the next game, you've still got that confidence. You're still like, right, who can we play? We can put 4 past this next team. That confidence goes right up until the next game. And I feel that within this team, that the confidence, the way the team's playing at the minute, you can see them carrying it on. And for me, Coach, it just lasted. And for me, it was game after game. And it literally just took a long time until we got humbled by a team and lost 2-3-0. I think we were still on a high until that time.
Well, we'll get to see how long this high lasts. And I do want to get to the match and talk about all that there is to it. But first, I want to let the listeners know that we're sponsored today by Apollo Home. Give them a call if you have any HVAC, plumbing, or electrical needs. And then I'll do a whole promo. All right. Okay. So, all right, Justin, let's get right to it. So many listeners want to talk about that formation. Mike Prentice, Mark Clippinger, Joe Braun, Allison Ross, Bill Hardy. They want to talk about the formation. They're wondering, was it specific to playing Miami? Could it be an alternative moving forward? Wes Jackson wanted to ask what other teams we think it could work against. But first, I want to talk about not just the formation in general, but who was in it. And that's Yuya Kubo, playing as a 9, a false 9. I'm not even sure. At San Soccer got in touch and said, it felt like we were playing more like 3 number 10s most of the match rather than a forward, because Yuya Kubo is not a target player. One of his best qualities, though, is his movement in space. And I felt like this formation, him up top, but also with Lucho and Luca Orishano underneath, allowed him to constantly drop into space and then get forward. And we saw that on the first goal. We're not going to break down these goals. There's too many, right? 7 goals, 6-1. But that first goal, if you remember, it's like Kubo was dropped in and Luca Orishano was the furthest forward. So Luca receives the ball in space, spins out of pressure, carries forward, but Kubo is able to get from his deeper position in the midfield all the way forward for the tap in. So Justin, to me, I think that's what's missing in the quote unquote other team that we've seen with Kelsey, Bupenza, some of the other forwards. They are very good at dropping in and linking play or staying forward, but generally don't do both as well as Yuya Kubo does.
No, and Yuya Kubo, you've seen him, his movement's great. On the ball, off the ball, his movement's great. I would say his match and soccer IQ is way above Bupenza and Kelsey. If you watch his IQ, you watch the runs he makes, the timing of his runs. He knows when to drop deep. He knows when to run in behind. And when I say football IQ, if you watch certain moments, especially on the first goal also, that's his football IQ. And not many players have it. Lucho has a different football IQ. But, you've got a player like that who can easily fit into the midfield. And I felt that sometimes when he slotted into midfield, you had Lucho who'd go further up top. And I felt the way that them three were able to not play so high and drop in, I felt that caused a huge problem for Inter Miami. And why was that? Is because Inter Miami central defenders, Busquets and I can't remember who the other guy is. Christoph, yeah. I don't want to, it's Inter Miami. I don't really care. I only know Busquets and the main players. But other than that, they didn't really have a man to mark. So that made it very, very difficult for them now to know what to do. So what they was doing is I was pushing high to try and play a high line to mark Orishano or Kubo or Lucho. And when they was doing that,
who were in the midfield.
Then when they was pushing so high up to create, to keep the lines quite narrow, there was so much space in behind, and Orishano and Lucho and Kubo were able to exploit that. And obviously, we saw in some of the opportunities that Orishano got, the amount of space that he had in behind and the pace he had was destroying Inter Miami every time.
And it wasn't even just playing the ball in behind, because then you have to worry about Drake Callender coming out or Christoph and Busquets dropping effectively. But what we saw is that line, exactly what you said, they would push higher and higher up trying to mark these players. But Yuya Kubo was so good at when the ball would go wide, he would make a darting run in behind into the channel. And most of the time, he didn't get that ball. Most of the time, he forced the defender to drop with him. And then what would happen is the strong side number 10. So you have Lucho and Luca playing dual number 10s. The strong side or ball side number 10 would check to the ball. And then the other one would just curl in behind that Yuya Kubo run, filling in that soft space, what I'm calling it, the hole in between those center backs who are dropping with Kubo and that defensive midfielder. And it's exactly what you said about soccer IQ. This system is not complicated, but it relies on players like Yuya Kubo who are going to work tirelessly and make those runs even when they're not getting the ball. I mean, he had the fewest outfield touches of any player. But it relies on that. And then also that game IQ, those smart players playing in those 3 roles who can find that soft space in defense. And then obviously the technical ability, because you nailed it with those lines getting tighter and tighter for Miami, trying to close that space for Lucho and Orishano and Kubo to play in. The technical ability to combine. Justin, you talked a little bit about what you saw in that defense. Talk from a personal experience when you're playing center back, outside center back, however, and you are trying to track these runners who are playing this, 3-man weave and running it behind and dropping in. How difficult is that to stay tuned in and on point and communicating to such an extent that you can cover all of those players all the time?
No, it's hard. And the majority of the time you can't do it because you're trying to pick up one player, then, another player pops up into the position. You're like, right, do I go with him? Do I pass him on? If the communication between me and the person next to me or in front of me is not right, then they're gonna get the ball. I'm trying to go tight to my man, but someone's running in behind me every time I try and go tight. So you're confused as a defender. You don't know what to do. So you're hoping that the person next to you understands what they're doing. And if they don't know, then it's catastrophic. You don't know
Yeah.
what to do. And it is, coach. I mean, when I'm telling you to play against this front three that have got so much movement, so much adaptability, and can play in different ways, pop into midfield, you're thinking, right, do I go over him? Do I pass him on? But the midfield have got their players to worry about. You don't know what to do. You're all confused. When you've got that, coach, it is so hard to mark and so
Right.
hard to defend. And,
Yeah.
if you can't do it, the best thing is just to sit off. If it was me, I would have just sat off and just been like,
That's what I was
let's keep
going
the
to
play.
ask.
Let's keep the play in front of me. I would have been sat off. I would have just stayed in my shape, kept a bank of 4, kept a bank of 5, and just let them play in front of me. And just, go there. Let's just sit off and keep the ball in front. But, they didn't without, they had experience, but they didn't use it. But, it worked in Cincinnati's favor. But to play against that coach, I'll tell you, I would have had a headache. I'm telling you. But I guess Busquets was happy to come off. Just put it that way, or get sent off.
Yeah, I wonder. I am so curious what happened in that. If listeners don't know, he
I'd
got
love to
2
know what
yellow
happened there.
cards in a row, both for arguing with the referee. So I would
Yeah.
have to imagine that that he said something to the referee like egregious, right? He gets the first yellow for arguing, then he says something like, about the referee's mom or the referee's wife, and then gets the second. I mean, I don't know. I don't know why else he'd get
He
2
must have
yellows
said
there in a
something
row.
bad. He must have said something bad.
Yeah, I don't know that we'll ever know. The other awesome thing about this formation, Justin, and you alluded to it, is that it's not just those 3 players in the movement, but all 3 of those players can fill any of those roles, can make those runs in behind, can drop in because they're all quick, they're all technically good. Kubo, we saw that in the 15th minute when Kubo was dropped in like in the middle third and was fouled. Yedlin took a quick free kick to Lucho on the right, and you see actually Orshano make that darting run into the channel. Lucho plays him. Fantastic little heel flick by Orshano back to the captain, and Lucho is in on goal, and he tries to kind of flick it up over Calendar's shoulder and hits the goalkeeper, and he had Kubo wide open to his left. I was
He should have
watching
passed
this.
that.
I don't know if you saw this, Justin, but I think Kubo could have had 5 goals in this match if
Yeah, he could have.
Orshano and
Easy.
if Lucho would have passed him the balls that he was there for a tap in. Because
Yeah, he
of
would
this
have. Yeah.
dynamic movement, it's generally not that first or second player that has the scoring opportunity. It's generally that third player because you have one person checking the ball, one person running behind, and then that person who sits in that soft space has so much time and space to score. The other thing I noticed is how this changed the team defensively, right? When you have Orshano and Lucho getting on the ball in so much space in the midfield because those center backs are trying to cover them, but then dropping to cover the run of Kubo in behind, it really ends up to those Inter-Miami midfielders drop deeper and deeper. And then the only way Miami can get out of their own zone is to play a long ball into a Campana or one of those wingers who they were staying really high for some reason. And then the center backs, Murphy and Powell and Robinson did such a good job at stepping into midfield and not letting them have those out balls. Justin, talk a little bit about defensively how your job becomes easier when the offense is clicking on at such a rate that the opponent has to keep dropping deeper and deeper to cover all those moving pieces.
It gives you a bit of a breather. When you play the ball forward, it gives you a breather. It gives you more time. It gives you more, I would say, awareness. You can organize people around you. You can have easier communication with everyone around you. And it makes your job so much easier just because you feel like the attack are attacking. The opposite team are dropping deeper, or they're trying to play a high line that, if you play a ball forward, it's going to get in, or you play the ball forward and the attackers are going to dribble and give you a little bit of a breather. It makes your job a lot easier. Yes, you are going to have hard moments to deal with, but you know that once you win that ball and be able to play it forward, it makes your job so much easier, coach. And you saw with the team's performance. I mean, I was happy with how Powell played. Robinson come in and stepped in, after being out, and you're just like,
I thought
he hadn't missed anything.
Just fantastic. Really
That's
good.
it. You can see you've missed someone like that, his experience. We don't see much of his communication, but he probably was communicating. But Robinson is a great defender. And even Murphy at times, I think he was good. So that back line, looked a lot more solid than it has been. And that's just adding one more player in. Do you know what I mean? So that
Yeah.
really makes a difference.
Now, people were talking about whether this formation was particular to playing against Miami with those slow center backs, and Miami kept their wings, Taylor and Gressel, really high, which I thought showed a little bit of hubris. It was a bad tactical decision. FCC kind of had all of the space they wanted for their wing backs. Let's talk a little bit why this formation could definitely, we talked about why it works and why it could be effective going forward. Let's talk about why it might not be a permanent solution or why it might not work against everybody. First of all, I think it relies on the FC Cincinnati wingbacks to be able to get forward and provide width and combine with one of those number 10s over and over and over. And if a team defends with good width, maybe they're in a 4-4-2 block, mid block or low block to where they have outside mids and outside backs down there. I think not having any player other than the wing back over on the width, I think it'd make it much easier for the team to track that movement. And then also, I think Miami's press was pretty bad. It was really disjointed. And the thing that I noticed that was a real weakness in this formation is not having a target out there, like a Kevin Kelsey, even a Bupenza did well at this. There were a few times when Miami did get their press right, when FCC had to play it to Luca Orishano in the half space at like the edge of the defensive third, and he was not very good there. When he had space to turn, or even when a defender got tight, he could turn quick and explode and get space right away, he was good. If a defender just kind of kept him touch tight, but not too tight, and just kept him facing towards goal, he turned the ball over at least 4 times trying to like link play or progress the ball. And that's in the defensive third there. It wasn't like he was turning it over trying to beat somebody 1v1 on the wing. And that's why I think this formation might be tough to play against more effective pressing teams, or also teams with more mobile center backs who might be able to track into the midfield and keep those lines tight, but then also drop step for step with a player like Kubo. What kinds of teams do you think, or what qualities in a team? You mentioned teams that sit off, maybe drop deep and kind of not try to press up and compress those lines. What kinds of teams do you think that this formation might struggle more against?
That we'll struggle against, or the teams are struggling against this formation?
Yeah, let me ask that question differently, and Charles will edit that out. So,
so is it who?
Yeah, I'm trying to ask, who FCC would struggle against if they were going to play. Like, basically, what I'm trying to get at is what kind of teams would this formation not work against? And so I think probably you're going to talk about teams with like really veteran communicating center backs that have played together a long time. Those sorts of things is what I assumed you'd say. But Okay, let me tee you up.
Well organized defensive team. Yeah, I'm trying to think what teams like that now.
And just cut it. You don't have to mention a team, just qualities.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's right.
Okay. Because I don't know the teams either. Like I can't tell you. Like maybe like national. I don't know.
I don't even know yet.
Okay. To ask this a different way, Justin, just what are the qualities present in an opponent where FCC or Pat Noonan might look at this and be like, this double 10 formation with Luca Orishano at a 10 might not work. We need to go back to what we've done more effectively throughout the season.
I would say a team or players with experience in the central areas, experience in the midfield area that are organizers. And I'd say it would be difficult to play against if a team was really organized. Had I don't know, coach, a team that was sit off, because it's like if a team was to sit off against the team that is lined up now, if you look at it, how are we going to exploit them in behind if a team that's sat off? You can't. Okay, now if they keep dropping deep to get on the ball, they're not really going to be effective in the final third. And if you've got a team that sits off, organizes, the ball goes wide, they shuffle across, they've got enough man. Now what you're going to do, you're going to have to be a team that tries to break them down with combination play. Will that work within this team? We don't know, because the combination plays might not suit us. I also feel it wouldn't work with a team that play, we just looked at Miami, a lot different to how Miami play.
Yeah.
I would say if you play a team that's counter-attacking, I don't know if it will work well against that team, because I feel that if you was to counter-attack against this team, you'll get a lot of opportunities just because the way Assad and Yedlin were pushing so high forward. You've got Orishano, Kubo, and Lucho that are quite high up. I feel you can really exploit in behind on the counter-attacks against this team. So I would say they're the difficulties playing against if Cincinnati was to play against. I think they're the problems we would face.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And I would add to that teams that press really well, because when FCC were trying to build through this formation, like I said, I thought not having Luka out wide made him struggle to get involved in the buildup, which would just take a piece off the board, and then you don't have that piece like Kevin Kelsey where you can play a ball into the feet. We saw them try that a few times with Kubo, and he lost out on almost every one of those. But you brought up Assad. And we got a question from Mike Prentice wondering if Assad should or could be the regular wing back. Assad has been looking more comfortable each there with every match.
Mm-hmm.
We saw him go from getting just a few minutes at the end of matches to all of a sudden the last couple of weeks he's out there like as a regular.
Starting regular, yeah.
We talked about how good the offense was, and I think Assad was a big part of that because he's so good at combining, right? He helped set up Datto's goal with combination play. But interesting, because of this skill set, for me, what makes this even more effective is that play where Lucho drops way to the left. And we've seen him do it with Orishano a couple times when Orishano was on the left. And then Assad was coming into the middle and actually making runs up the seam. I noticed after Assad was subbed off, Lucho tried to do this with Halsey a couple times and couldn't really get it going. Now they were also already up 6-1, and Miami was dropping deeper and deeper. So who knows? But Assad is good enough to run through the middle, at least in that half space, allowing Lucho to float as wide as he wants and without losing that number 10 presence. So we talked about those front three, the Kubo, Luka, Lucho front three. Well, add Assad to that because he was also kind of weaving in and out and taking up different positions. Now I'm curious if they can keep trying to do this if Assad is not able to play, or if Luka or Shano's over there or something. But what about having Assad over there and that adding that extra piece to that dynamic movement?
I feel he's got that really good understanding with Lucho. I don't know if Lucho was influential in bringing Assad in. I know that Tati Martino, when he had him at Atlanta, he was a big player for them also. But he's really grown into that position for me. When I first saw him, I wasn't sure about him, but I think the more he's played, I think the more he's grown in confidence, the more I feel his fitness levels have got a lot better. And I guess I'm listening to the commentators and I'm watching him. I feel he's really in this team for his attacking presence. And he does add another dynamic to this attack. Now, if you're looking at, is he going to play there regularly? If he plays there regularly, then that must mean Orishano is going to play further forward, because now you're looking at on the right, but then who are you going to take out? Are you going to take out Yedlin? Because Yedlin is not comfortable, be honest, as a right central defender. He is comfortable on the right-hand side. So now you're thinking, okay, well, if Assad is comfortable playing on his left-hand side, doing really well, links up well and combines well with Lucho or Kubo, and has Yedlin on the right-hand side, who's bombing up and down, has a good understanding with Orishano, who's now a dual 10 with Lucho, you're looking at this is potentially probably what the lineup is going to look like for the next couple of weeks. We're going to lose Miles Robinson, so it's going to have to change. But, if we look at it, Coach, do you feel Assad now is going to be that starter on that side? Or do you feel now we're going to push Orishano there and bring Kelsey back in? Me, I'll be honest, I don't think so. I feel they're going to keep Assad on the left or Orishano forward. But, Coach, you're a coach. You would understand it more. Are you happy with Assad at the minute? And do you see him playing there regularly?
Yeah, I mean, we talked a little bit about the types of teams this formation might struggle against. And so the one that I circle on the calendar that I worry about is the New York Red Bulls match. Yeah. I don't think I would play this formation against the Red Bulls, but you're going to have to rotate a bit anyway. So I could see them rolling with this formation against Chicago, against Charlotte, and seeing how it goes against Red Bulls and maybe some rotation then. I will say what little joy Miami had on the night from open play kind of seemed to come behind Assad most of the time.
Yeah,
not only was Assad very aggressive going forward, like you said, Yedlin was too. Assad lacks that, let's just say, vigor in tracking back.
Because Yedlin can get back. Yedlin's got that speed to get back and athleticism. Assad, it takes it gets a bit going to get back, but that's tough against some teams.
And then I thought even when he was dropped back several times, he kind of got his positioning wrong where he did that thing we saw a lot from Orshano early in the season, where he would leave that wide player, usually the fullback on that side, just a little bit too open, and then that ball would go in behind him, forcing Ian Murphy to go out wide, and then he's dropping into the middle, which for the most part they did pretty well limiting. But that kind of movement, when you're having a center back stretch wide, a wing back dropping in the middle, that just starts to complicate things, and that's where runners get lost and things happen. So talking about purely defense, do you think that there's a drop off just defensively between Luca Orshano on the left and Yamil Assad on the left?
The only way I say that is in transition, coach.
Because Orshano's faster.
Because Orshano's got a bit of athleticism to get back. Drop up in defense. They're both not unbelievable defenders.
Right.
But I would just say in transition, I think I'd rather have Orshano there as a transition guy. But having Murphy up there, I would say Assad can do a job. But I would say Orshano. But I think it's quite similar. If you look at defensively and the problems it happens, I feel it's quite similar. Because I thought even if Orshano was out there against Gressel, I think Gressel would still cause the same problems he did against Assad than he would at Orshano, you know?
Exactly.
So I don't feel there's much of a drop-off, to be honest.
Yeah, and then there's different qualities offensively between Assad and Orshano, and I'd probably
100%.
rather have Orshano there purely offensively, but Assad a very good offensive player. So when you look at it like that, I think, what are you losing by keeping Assad out there on the left and putting Orshano as an attacking midfielder? The thing that you're losing right now is that second forward, like Dado Valenzuela, right? Because you can still play, a Kevin Kelsey instead of a Yuya Kubo in the same system if Kubo needs some rotation, or next match with Obinna Nwobodo suspended on yellow cards again. So I will be interested to see how this going forward. I will say with Assad, you think veteran offensive player, knows what he's doing. I still think there's some really interesting moments where he just feels like he loses his decision-making ability. There was a moment in the 42nd minute when he's leading the break, and you could tell him like trying to decide what to do, to pass it left to Kubo or to keep going. And he all of a sudden tries to dribble between two defenders, and they just like stick their foot out and like, oh, thank you very much. Take the ball. Yeah. There are a couple of times when he is caught in two minds. Like, should I play the simple ball or should I split lines? And then he kind of plays it in between the two, right to a defender. So I do think Assad, but that could just be rust still. He's only had
100%.
a handful of minutes. Sure, he's played a lot the past couple games, but he's only had a handful of minutes. Justin, let's go ahead and hit a break right now and then come back and talk about how good the FCC press was and Obinna Nwobodo's performance. Hit a promo too, and then okay. All right, Justin, some multiple listeners again, Coach Ryan Black, Andrew Yokati, sorry, Andrew, if I got that name wrong, wants to talk about the FCC press because it was really effective for a lot of this match. It seemed like dropping that one forward in favor of a number 10 meant that they usually like to press with three anyway. It just put those players in a more natural position to start that press. Did you notice any tactical changes in the press? Any changes to the pressing cue or anything like that? I didn't. I'm wondering if you saw anything different or if it was just more effective.
No, I didn't. I'll be honest, Coach. I was the same as you. I didn't really see anything different. I just feel that the way Inter Miami tried to play out from the back played into Cincinnati's hands, and you could see that. So for me, Coach, I really didn't see anything different. It just worked against a team that couldn't play a certain way out of the back.
I feel like there are three major factors to why the press was so good, and it was not tactical. It was the same press. One player leads the press, the other two drop in behind like a pressure cover triangle, funnel that ball into the wide areas, press high with the wing backs, try to win the ball. Three factors, though. Number one, that front three were so quick to initiate the press, and they all did it at the same time. I feel like when you have players like Kelsey or Santos or Dado out there, you sometimes get some hesitation, like they're not exactly sure. And it makes sense because from Lucho and Kubo, because they're both veterans. But I wonder, why do you think Orishano was so good at initiating that press? Is it just youthful exuberance, or do you think there's something to the fact that maybe him and Lucho, speaking the same language or both being Argentinian, we're just clicking better in that regard?
I think a bit of both, coach. They both got that understanding together, and I think Orishano's got that enthusiasm to be like, I'm a little bit higher up now. I've got freedom to go and press and press earlier and press higher. So I feel he had that freedom, and you could kind of see he was enjoying playing in that position and in that role.
Yeah. I also think another factor beyond that front three was that Obi and Buka were really good and effective at pressing the Miami midfielders. Normally, you have the three midfielders for the other team, and then you have Buka and Kubo trying to pick who is going to press on who, right? And it was the same. There were still those three midfielders. You had Kramaski and Bright and somebody else out there. I don't remember who, but I was watching the movement of Obi and Buka, and what I noticed is, man, Buka would kind of go to the closest person to the ball, make sure he couldn't get it, and then Obi just sat back and like read the play so well and kind of covered both of those other midfielders at the same time. I mean, it's just Obi and Buka is the starting midfield that we've seen most of the time. Is this something that Miami did or didn't do that made this so effective, or were Obi and Buka just really on point in this match?
I feel they was really on point, but I feel what works in our favor, coach, I'll be honest, and what probably worked against Inter Miami was not having someone like Busquets in the central midfield. His is a six. Yes, they had Redondo in there, but I still felt that if you had Busquets in there, I feel Inter Miami play a different way with him as a six, and I feel our defending would have been a lot different. Just because he can play them, forward passes, he can break lines, he can see passes that some other players probably don't, that Inter Miami didn't see. And I feel having him in there, not having him in there in this game, most certainly played into our hands. But let's be honest, coach, no matter what team they put out, what players they put out, they've got great players. And I felt that Buka and Obi done a great job defending against that. And like you say, Buka made the right decision when to press, and Obi seemed like he was back to his normal self, covering the players that he used to and making the interceptions that he needed to.
Yeah, I agree completely with that. And then the third factor of this effective press for me was moving one line even further back. I thought Miles Robinson was so good at limiting long pass into Campana's feet. And same with Powell and Murphy on Taylor and Gressel. What do you think allowed those central defenders to be so effective at being aggressive and stepping in and winning those balls, but also not allowing Inter Miami to play over the top? Was it because Taylor is a fast player and they love to play him in space? So it's not like, there was no speed out there, so FCC got to press higher and higher. Do you think it was because Powell and Murphy and Robinson are three pretty quick center backs? Powell is outright fast. They said on the broadcast that in terms of the clocking of speed, that he's the fastest player in MLS this season. So do you think having that speed of Powell allows Murphy and Robinson to be even a little more aggressive, being like, I'll go because Alvis is back there going to run the ball down if it goes past me?
100%. And I felt that the back three, having Miles back in there and having Powell in there, they knew that if the ball goes long, they've got the speed to get back and make recovery runs. And I felt that Inter Miami kind of knew that. Yes, Taylor's fast, but he's up against Yedlin, he's up against Powell. So that kind of, I would say, put him off a bit. But I would say also that what helped the back three was the press of the midfield. Buka got it right. Obi got it right. So once you've got that organization in front of you, pressing right and pressing on the right cues and covering the right passing channels, it makes your job a million times easier. And it makes it look like you don't even do much in the game. And all you need to do is make sure you're in the right position, that if anything goes long, you're right on cue. If they play to the forward, you're right there and everyone's tucked around. And I felt that every moment in time that it happened, majority of the time and throughout that game, it was on point. And that's what the team needs to win this Supporter Shield again and to be MLS champions.
Yeah. You talked about the midfield. A lot of listeners were having a discussion on Twitter about Obi. Rob Barrymore, Jose, James Faulkner, Robbie O. Obi has not been fantastic this season.
Himself.
He's been good, not himself. In this match, to me, he seemed to be
He was
back to
himself.
his best. He was reading the play, and then what makes him elite, because he reads the play well, but it's not perfect. What makes him elite is the ability to accelerate and get a touch on the ball or win the ball from a standing position. That
No,
athleticism,
it's
it's like he's
crazy.
shot out of a cannon. In the 36th minute, that's what he did, which gave him the assist for Acosta's goal, as he was just kind of sitting forward. He read the play. As the pass was going to a player, he exploded forward, picks it off cleanly, passes it to Lucho, and then Lucho does the rest. Justin, Miami just had no way to get through the middle of the field with Obi back there, just limiting everything.
I mean, coach, we've seen what he's done since he's come into this team. I would say he's one of the main reasons why the team has transitioned to the team they are now is because of him. Yes, he's not looked like his usual self in previous games, but this game he looked like he was back to himself. He looked like he was up for it. Looked like he wanted to show, you know, people could say whatever they want, but I'm me. I can play. I'm ready. I'm not. I've not been 100%, but now I'm back. I'm ready. I'm ready to show, and I feel like he showed that. And when you've got someone in midfield like that, like Obi has been and was in this game, I'm telling you, coach, it makes everyone's job around you so much easier.
Yeah.
Kante had that, was like that at Chelsea.
Yeah.
And everyone was like, well, he's doing the same as Obi. He can do 2-3 players' job at once. He's covering, he's defending well, he's up to the ball, he's putting high pressure. So as a defender, if he's putting so much high press, the forward now the midfield turns his back and going back to goal. As a defender now, you can step up your line a little bit because he's putting that great pressure on.
Yeah.
Sometimes a midfielder has the ball, he gets up tight to them. The midfielder puts his head down. That's a cue now for the defenders to be like, right, he's got his head down. We can press the lines again. Now, when you've got someone like that, that doesn't take communication. That just takes understanding. And once you've got that understanding, like they had in this game, coach, it's so hard as an opponent to play against that. And Obi just showed that in this game. And Buka, I feel they're working and getting that understanding together. And as the season goes on, I feel the two of them are getting better and better, which is what we want.
And it's exactly what you said. It's a force multiplier. He allowed everyone else to be more aggressive. He allowed, I thought, Assad to cheat forward at times where Assad was back defensively, but he would see the play start to happen. Like you said, that midfielder would drop his head and Assad would take off, being like, this is going to be a turnover. I'm going. And that also led to the goal when Lucho, it's the one where Lucho drops back right at the end of the first half and picks off a player. You see Assad cheat forward and able to do that. I gave Obi, I do player ratings every week. Most weeks on CincinnatiSoccerTalk.com. And I gave him my man of the match because of that. The thing that the listeners were also getting on about with Obi, though, is that he is still continuing to show some real struggles on the ball in possession. He had a really bad turnover at the edge of the defensive third in the 19th minute where he played a ball right to a Miami defender. And that led to the best chance Miami had from open play. That's the one where Campana was played in. Murphy held him onside, and then Campana spun and hit his left-footed shot wide of the goal. There were a few other passes that he tried to fit into tight spaces and turned it over. It's one thing if Lucho does that, because Obi takes good care of the ball compared to Lucho, right? But when Obi does turn it over, because Obi is that guy who is limiting all of the transition opportunities, when he turns it over, it often leads to a numbers down transition. Now, I get Obi does not need to be an offensive force, especially when he's winning the ball like he did in this match. But what does he need to be more successful in possession? Is to order to best utilize Obi, does Pat Noonan need to drop Buka deeper in possession to help progress the ball or convince Obi to play simpler? Is there something else?
Yeah.
Because with Junior Moreno on the pitch next to him last year, Obi felt much more sound in possession. This year, he seems more erratic. Is this a matter of Obi just needing to settle down, play more within himself, or is there something tactically that you think Noonan can do to help him?
No, I would just say he just needs to play it simple. If you're a player that is good at winning the ball, all you have to do, well, I say it sounds easy, but it's just win the ball and play the ball simple. Play the ball to the nearest guy near you. If you get the ball in a certain position, no one's around you, play it back simple. I feel that sometimes he takes too many touches, he overthinks things, and then loses the ball. And then he's like, oh, I've got to get back. If he done the simple things easy, it'd be more effective. Yes, sometimes it's going to be a tight situations where he's going to have to use his body to get out of positions or play it back simple. But I feel that also comes from the player giving him the ball. The player needs to give him the ball, give him an option, or give him the ball and give him some communication, give him some information. Anyone that plays Buka the ball needs to give him information to get him to understand, right, if I play him the ball, now I need to tell him what the next pass is. So he's not then thinking, oh, I've got the ball, now what have I got to do? If you give him information before he gets the ball, like outside left, if Yedlin's on, or Murphy or Powell, that's all you need to say to him. So he's already got that picture in his head that once I've got the ball, I can play there, I can play there. But I feel if he done things a lot simpler, a lot earlier, and just made his decision a lot quicker, I'd say, coach, he'd be a more effective player. And I feel like he wouldn't lose the ball as much as he does in critical situations.
Hold on a second. Bring it again. Yeah, you hit the nail on the head with giving him options. I think that's the thing that I notice. Often when Obi gets the ball, he takes good care of it. I cannot emphasize that enough. He doesn't just like fritter it away. It's usually the fourth or fifth touch where he turns the ball over. And I think if his teammates realize, hey, this is our number 6, our holding midfielder. If he turns it over, there is no defensive cover behind him at times. And I think when he receives the ball, if one or two players work quickly, a Buka, one of those wing backs comes from wide position and drops underneath a little bit to give him an option to play the way he's facing, I think that is the one tactical thing that I would change if I was Noonan, is I would just say, when the ball goes into Obi, Buka, I need you to slide 4 or 5 steps back. And whatever wing back, whatever side Obi's on, I need you to not move forward up the field where he has no angle to get it to you. I need you to drop in and towards the touchline so he has an easy ball back. But other than that, I think Obi, again, just needs to settle down, play within himself. And I'll emphasize, when he is winning the ball like he was, he can make a few turnovers. I'm okay with that. And then we'll hit promo 3.
I'll be happy with that, yeah.
All right, Justin, time for the mailbag. Brett Sova got in touch and wants to know, how important is it for someone like Sergio Santos in the locker room to help young guys embrace that role of being a player coming off the bench? Because we see players like Kelsey, who hasn't started of late, Dado, who's been starting but moved to the bench for this match. Speak as a veteran who's been in the locker room. What can Santos bring to those young players as they're not getting the minutes that they want and they're having to come off the bench?
He's got that experience, got that understanding to know what it takes to be the voice, to help them, to encourage them, to get them playing, to get them enthusiastic to come on, to want to show what they can do. I feel he's also in the group and in the squad because of that reason. He's been there, he's done that, he's got that experience, and I feel him being a voice, and someone for them to look up to as being that veteran leader, that veteran person who's been there, I think that's key. And I feel like just being a vocal and being a voice in the locker room. And I guess, coach, from looking at some of the videos and some of the training sessions that you see that they post sometimes, I feel he's a great character in the locker room. Mm-hmm. And I feel that is also important, that you have them type of characters in the locker room that bond the younger players and everyone together. And I feel like Santos is that player. And I feel he's going to be very important for the younger players as well as the experienced older players to keep everyone in check.
I agree. And then you add into the fact that he's had some pretty good minutes off the bench. He's not been outstanding.
He's been doing well since he's come on.
Yeah, but he's completing passes, good touches. He's working hard off the ball. I've been really pleased with Santos this year.
I am as well. I'm good.
Probably not like $800,000 worth of pleased or whatever salary he's on, but we'll work towards that.
That's a nice salary.
Yeah. Justin, a few listeners got in touch and want to talk, and we talk about this so much. Set piece defending. Paul Rahman, Mark Clippinger.
We're good at your way, coach.
I want to talk about, what would you do differently? What would I do differently? In the 3rd minute of this match, there's a corner kick, and FCC lines up basically at this point in full man-to-man. They have Buka on the near post, and Obi is at a near post zone. Everybody else is man-to-man. And this play, you see the dangers of man-to-man. You see Powell is on Christoph, and Yedlin is on Busquets. Busquets doesn't try to make a run at all. He literally just eyes on Powell the whole time, sets a pick, and Christoph runs off that pick and is wide open. And then in the 21st minute, you think, okay, no, Christoph didn't make good touch with his head. Roman got it clear. We're all good. But there's the exact same play in the 21st minute. This time, Powell sees it coming. And instead of running into the pick, he goes around it. But that still leaves so much space for Kristoff to have 2 yards of space to head home from there. Here's my question to you. DeAndre Yedlin was on Busquets on the first play. It was Ian Murphy on the second. What is their responsibility? Because I understand the ins and outs of zonal defending. I have never had my players play man-to-man because I think it's too susceptible to being picked. In a man-to-man corner defense, what is the responsibility of the player who is marking the guy who is setting the pick? So Ian Murphy, DeAndre Yedlin, marking Ian Murphy. Should they switch like you do in basketball? Should they hedge, like jump out and mark Kristoff? Should they push the guy setting the pick so that he can't get a clear run at the Cincinnati player to set the pick? What do you do in that situation?
To be honest, coach, I'm not sure.
You mark the post and then you yell at your teammate, "What are you doing? Why didn't you mark them?"
And if someone scored a header on me and I got picked, I'm like, hold on a minute, he picked me, coach. What do you want me to do? No, I don't know. In this situation, it's hard because when you go man to man and they're going to try and block you, they're going to try and put someone against you. I feel it's hard to try and defend against that. I don't feel in that situation you can pass anyone on. I feel sometimes whoever's in your way, you have to just throw them out the way. Or if there's a player that's free, you have to just get them to attack the ball and just be an essential player. That your sole job is to attack anything that comes in that central area is your job. That is you. That's it. Anyone that gets picked, you have to be, physical and use your body and just make sure they don't. And just don't let them get in front of you.
Yeah.
And that little players around you, just don't let them get in front of you.
And that, I think, is the key for man-to-man defense. First of all, I wouldn't do man-to-man. I've already said I would go basically a hybrid. I would have probably 5 to 6 players playing in a zone, and I would have my other 4 players basically playing bump and run coverage, interrupting those runs and then covering people man-to-man outside after they interrupt those runs. But if you're going to play man-to-man, what you have to do is you have to stay ball side. So if Powell marks Kristoff ball side, now you can't watch the ball in this case, which is the hard part. You have to kind of do like the NFL receivers do, or NFL cornerbacks, where you watch the receiver, and when you see him looking for the ball, that's when you look for the ball. But if Powell can stay ball side of Kristoff, then that pick is a foul, because then Kristoff has to run through Powell. Powell is trying to run through Busquets. But even still, I think then you're relying on the referee to call something. That gets hard. Jeff Jackson wants to know if Roman Celentano should be more aggressive coming off his line to claim or punch those set pieces. He rarely does that, even when the balls are falling inside the 6-yard box. That goal is a tough one. It's right at the 6, so you think maybe he could come. It's also bending away from him. I'm not a goalkeeper. I have been a collegiate goalkeeper coach for a bit. You've been in the room where you're talking set piece defending. What are coaches telling Roman about commanding his box? Is it as simple as if you can get it, go get it? Is it that 6-yard box is yours? You need to command that. What do you think the message is to Roman in that locker room?
I mean, if it's not his natural game, I don't think he'll do it. If it's natural to him and he's confident, and I feel maybe why he's not confident is because physically he's not built to come out and take a physical challenge. There's some goalkeepers that are brave, that will just go and clear everybody out, and whatever is in that box is mine. And I've played with goalkeepers that are like that. They're the type of goalkeepers that I call crazy. Anything is in their way, they're coming for it. They don't care who's in the way, they're going for it. If someone's going to barge into them, they don't care. I've been with other goalkeepers where they're like, I'm not coming for that. I'm going to stay where I am. And if there's a header, I'm going to try and react off it. I say I like my goalkeepers to command that area, because that's your area. Look, if you've got loads of players around you, I don't expect you to come and get it. But if there's no one around you, I fully expect the goalkeeper to be able to come out and get it. But if that's not your game and that's not what you're used to, then that's fair enough. I'm not a goalkeeper and I'm not a goalkeeper coach. So I must say, what do you like to do? But me as a player and who's played in many teams and now looking at it as a coach for a point, like you coach, I would like my goalkeepers to command that area. you're the coach, you know, you might not be a set piece coach, but looking at it, would you want your goalkeeper to command his area, I would say, in them certain situations, to come out and claim some of these or even get a hand on it?
Yeah, I would say when there's no players around you, when you have a free run at the ball, if you can get a touch on it, you should be. And you need to be direct and you need to be decisive because you have arms that stretch up 2 feet over your head. Plus you're tall. Like, you should be able to get that touch every time. I totally get that it's not Roman's game. He's not confident doing it. We've seen him come to touch some or to punch some, and it's looked a little bit shaky. But I would say, especially now without Matt Niazga in there, I would say, Roman, I know you're not comfortable doing it, but I don't care if it's part of your game or not. You're a young goalkeeper. I'm going to get you to be where I think you need to be, and this needs to be part of your game. You need to go do that. And we have seen him actually grow a little bit in that area. But then, a few matches ago, we saw that player who launched themselves into Roman, and luckily Roman ended up being okay. But it's like plays like that I wonder if make him a little more tentative. But, Justin, what is definitely in our game is showing up every week and breaking down these matches and crushing it, because we're doing it, man. And we didn't even break down the goals in this match, and we still managed to go, 50 minutes plus. So thanks for doing it, my friend.
Anytime, Coach. Imagine we had to break down the goals. Would have been here all night, I think.
Yeah, I made that executive decision not to do that.
That's why you're the leader on a goal.
If you want my thoughts on a goal, listeners, you can get in touch on the socials and ask me, and I'll give you a full breakdown there. But other than that, Justin, you got anything else for us?
No, nothing. Nothing at the minute. Everything's quite quiet on my front at the minute. So we'll just look forward to the next game, and hopefully we'll have more news after that. But no, just looking forward to the next game, Coach. Just see how things go.
Awesome. All right. And that is it for this episode of Talking Tactics with Coach Gough. And I'll roll to the close.
Perfect.
Easy. All right.